Hello, this is Dustin with the All Kinds of Weather Forecast. Today, we have a special guest with us. You do not want to miss the rest of this episode. Along with this very special guest, we are going to introduce this week's power rankings for college football, the SEC, and we're going to pick the top 10 games of the week, as well as look at the rest of the season outlook for the Florida Gators. Again, you do not want to miss this episode coming up next. How's it going? Again, my name is Dustin, and I'm here with a very special guest. This is, of course, Coach Mario Drayton. Coach, how's it going?
Man, it's going well, man. Happy to be on, man. Excited to talk some Florida Gator football.
Absolutely. So, Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been coaching high school football for 18 years, coached various places, Lowndes High School, Thomas County Central, just to name a few. Right now, I'm the current head coach at Dr. Ronald E. McNair High School here in Atlanta, Georgia. We are in fourth season right now. Before I got there, we were 0-29. We've actually won more games in the last 2 years than they won in the last 4.5. So we're just very excited about finishing up the season, man. And like I said, man, I'm a huge Florida Gator fan, originally from Jacksonville, Florida. Had a cousin to play at Florida. William McClendon is one of my cousins. So that's when I fell in love with Florida Gators, when I turned on the TV and my grandma was like, look, that's your cousin right there. And it was him. And I saw that McClendon on that jersey and I saw the swamp and the Gators, man. And that's when I fell in love with Florida.
Absolutely. Well, sir, you have a very different perspective than us fans. You know, we occasionally call ourselves the couch tweeters, and we might yell at the TV, and we're wondering, man, why is Coach calling that play? Yeah. Sir, you know exactly. You've called plays before. That's what you do. This is your bread and butter. So it's an honor to have you on. Now, before we get into the juicy goodness that is the power rankings, I want to break down the Gators with you. You're an expert. So I want to talk to me about Graham Mertz first and foremost. Tell me about what you see in him. Break down his game for me, sir.
Man, Graham Mertz, first of all, I've never met the kid, but you can just see by the interviews and things like that. Even when we first got him out of transfer portal, you can see the poise and the leadership qualities, because, you know, stepping into a pressure cooker like Florida and being the quarterback is different than being a quarterback in a lot of places. And so the first thing that I got off him is I knew he would be able to handle what comes with being the guy at the University of Florida. What my concern was coming into the season was the fact that could he perform to the level that would have us to be able to win games and possibly get a bowl. That was my biggest concern with him. I knew he had some skill. You're not playing Power 5 football if you can't play football. So I knew the kid could play. My biggest concern was play calling for him, things like that, and putting him in situations that are beneficial to him. And so talking about, we can get into last game. I think last game was the perfect way for him to be successful in the University of Florida uniform. You know, I know he doesn't want to, I know Billy Napier don't want to throw the ball a lot, but you kind of seen he threw the ball a lot, but it wasn't crazy passes. It was a lot of controlled, short to intermediate, which he's really good at. I mean, he's completing over 70% of his passes, and a lot of those are short to intermediate. And a lot of people might have problems with that, but I don't, because my thing is we've been very inconsistent in the run, and we've seen this before from other schools. It's, you know, think about the air raid. Think about a lot of those systems that don't utilize the run as much as Florida would like to, but they're throwing the screens, they're throwing the 5-yard hitches, the slants, throwing the curls, you know, running off play action because people expect to run. I think Saturday's game versus South Carolina really was, I hope, was a starting point to where we can grow offensively with Mertz as the quarterback and being able to win us games. That was one of my biggest concerns with him, you know, and I posted it on Twitter and every Florida group. can he win us a game? Can we put the ball on his shoulders and be like, look, we need you to win? And I think he proved, and I think Coach Napier proved that he's willing to bend on this philosophy, because I see that Graham Mertz's strength is that short and intermediate passing game. And I think we did that, and to a great result.
Right. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So check this out. So we have Graham Mertz come in. For the most part, he's not really throwing the ball deep a lot.
No.
But then the South Carolina game, it seemed like we completely blew open the offense. Tell us a little bit about your perspective on the change in the offensive scheme from the first games to this game against South Carolina.
Well, I think coming into the game, I know Billy Napier is a smart guy. You know, they look at the advanced stats, they look at those things like that. And I think the biggest thing was we were very inconsistent in the running game. And if you go and look at the film, and I'm pretty sure they did, but you can see a lot of teams, and I think Kentucky was a big microcosm of what other teams were going to do. They were constantly rolling guys down, you know, and those are the guys that you can't block and things like that, rolling guys down and kind of did look, throw the ball downfield. We dare you to throw the ball downfield. We don't believe that Mertz can throw the ball, period. We don't believe that your guys can separate. We don't think that, we think Coach Napier is not going to do anything to make us change what we want to do against you guys. And against Kentucky, and when you got with the South Carolina game, it was different. We threw a lot on first down, a lot more play action on first down, because I'm not in the room with them, but I know as coaches, I know we coach against ourselves sometimes. And so what I mean by that is, the one thing that I would do is, when I have what we call a hit sheet, and I'll go back and go to every game. All right, how many times do we run the ball to the left, to the middle, to the right, on first down, on second down, on third down? I mean, what's our percentage run pass? And let's just say for Florida, let's just say it was 70-30. So if we're doing that, you know, other schools are doing that too. So I think what happened was they went in that room, they see those things, they see where Mertz is strong at, they see where we're weak at. And it's like, look, we need to tweak the game plan so we can have more success. And the biggest thing that we did was, again, you didn't see a lot of downfield, stupid shots and things like that. You saw what he was good at. So that's a big ups to Billy Napier, his staff, because they see what he's good at, and they formulate a game plan so well around what he did that it helps us to not only stay in the game with South Carolina, but when we needed to come back and score, that was the first game in a long time that I did not feel that we weren't going to go downfield and win the game. And that's saying a lot coming from Anthony Richardson and guys before him. Like, that was the first time in a while that I'm like, man, we got this. Only because of the game plan that was put in and the way that he executed that game plan. He did what he always does. He completes intermediate passes, don't make dumb mistakes. He's going to check the ball down. He's not going to take big sacks. He's not going to do anything stupid with the ball. And I think he put a game plan together for him, and I think that's what really helped us win big against South Carolina.
Yeah, it was excellent. Now, Florida's defense certainly, for lack of a better phrase, they took a few steps back in this game. Now, South Carolina has an excellent quarterback. Rattler he came into college being one of the best recruits, so he certainly has some prowess. Unfortunately, the defense seemed to be out of position quite a bit, and then tackling was an issue, especially early in the game. I know they got a little better. Definitely got a good stop at the end of the game. I mean, that interception was critical to kind of end the game for it there. Tell me about what you saw in the defense. Why in your mind, why has the defense taken steps back recently?
One, I think we're young, and when you're young and you have a new coordinator, and I think I can relate this to my experience at my school right now. We have a younger defense. Our offense is a lot older. And so I just feel like teams are kind of catching on to what we're doing scheme-wise and able to attack it. Because they mention it every Sunday. Florida's playing so many freshmen on the defense. And with that, if you're going to do that, a lot of times you have to really simplify what you're doing. But with the simplification, two things can happen. One, what happened in the first few games, where our defense, you can see the improvement because we're running around, we're flying, guys aren't thinking, we're making those tackles. And a lot of times those missed tackles are a result of you having to think through things. And now the plays happening, and then the plays ran, and now I'm running to the play a little bit later than I normally was, and I'm missing tackles, so I'm not reacting like I want to. So I don't think that I know we're taking a step back, but I'm really attributing that to the youth on defense. You have to be simple when you're playing young guys. A lot of guys that didn't play last year playing this year. You have a brand new defense as well. So if you mix all of those things in, I think that's what we're kind of struggling with right now. Do I think we're going to get it back on track? Yes, I do, because the more experience those guys get playing together and get comfortable with Armstrong's offense, he gets comfortable with them, then he's able to implement a lot more things that we can do different. And you know what I'm saying? A lot of times, you have to be able to trust your team to be able to do those things. And if they can't do those things, I know us as fans are like, well, why they not doing this? Why are we playing off coverage on third down? Or, why we're not playing more man and things like that. Again, I mean, we have a young secondary. We're young everywhere. And so a lot of times when you deal with those type of things, you do have to be simple. You do have to play safe. You do have to bend, but don't break sometimes. And I think right now, because teams know who we are defensively, we're breaking a lot more than we would like to. But I think towards the end of the season, I think that it'll kind of flatten out a little bit. I don't think we'll be getting, towards the end of the season and these high scoring games against like that. Hopefully we're scoring a lot and they're not. But I think that the defense will settle down. I think when he gets comfortable with those guys and be able to implement a lot of different things on defense, play a lot more man coverage, maybe we have to send more blitzes and things like that, stunts and things like that. I think towards the end of the season, I think we'll probably be okay. But right now, it is a cause concern. But, again, I trust Billy Napier. I trust everything that he's doing right now. And so I got a feeling that we're going to kind of get the ship right.
That's excellent. So, I mean, we got a big matchup against Georgia. I mean, because we have the bye week, the Georgia hate week starts early.
Yeah.
You live in Georgia.
Yes.
You got to deal with those barking idiots all the time.
Man, listen.
Before we get into these power rankings, I want you to give me your best, most hilarious, most interesting Georgia rivalry story. I know I'm putting you on the spot, so.
Oh my God. Listen, I've worked in South Georgia and I'm in North Central Georgia now. Okay. Listen, South Georgia is so much Bulldog country. Like I felt like I was always the only Gator fan in Georgia. But the thing about it is, and it's just kind of crazy, those fans in South Georgia were a lot more tame. Like, they didn't rub it in my face when they did beat us, so I didn't rub it in their face. Now up here is different. Most of my administration are Georgia Bulldog alumni. And they are crazy. Like for the Florida Georgia game, they're going to the mountain. They go to the mountains to a mountain retreat with their alumni group, and they get like crap faced and it's crazy. But I think the craziest story is, I know we were in my defensive coordinator is an engineer, and my assistant principal was like, "Hey, have you ever seen those shoulder pads, that the Georgia Bulldog fans wear with the spikes and things like that?" And so he was like, "Yeah." So she said, "I want you to make me some of those and things like that." And so I'm saying like, well, why? Because they wanted some. So he made them, spray painted them, everything. And so after they beat us, pretty bad that year. I mean, she came to school, full face paint, shoulder pads, spiked on and stuff like that. And I walked into school, we got our butts kicked. I was just trying to avoid and stuff like that. And we were around kids, and all that stuff on. She jumped out at me. She said, I don't know if I can cuss or not, but I won't cuss. But use your imagination. She jumped out and was like, "Yeah, we whooped y'all," in front of all the kids, like in front of everybody. Like the whole school just stopped, and she was like, it was crazy, man. Like. She was like, they were really excited. And, that was around the time, we were still kind of, even though we were not the better team some years, we were still kind of beating them and stuff like that. So that was like the craziest story I've ever, because I've never had a person, come at me like that, because they knew I was a Florida fan. They know I'm diehard. They know I don't care. We win, lose, or draw. It don't matter. But she came at me, and like my principal was they were looking at me. And I'm like, I didn't know what to say. It was just kind of caught me by surprise. And so that's like my craziest story up to date right now. Like I said, man,
Wow.
the South Georgia fans, like they were pretty, matter of fact, I actually coached with one of the quarterbacks in the 80s. When I was at Valwood down in South Georgia, you know what I'm saying? I actually coached, isn't it? John Lastinger played quarterback around the time Herschel was there and stuff like that. And he's like the coolest guy, man. So that's what really made me like, Georgia fans are pretty like cool. And so I got a chance to coach with him. He's big alumni, goes to everything. So he's a great dude, man. And so, he made my South Georgia hate experience a lot more bearable.
Wow. Well, thank you for that story. I mean, it's a big time game. Whether the Gators are 0-7 or 7-0 going into this game, you got to beat Georgia. Florida's certainly not going to be picked to win, but anything can happen. We learned in 2014 that anything can happen in that game. And of course, Muschamp was on his way out, but it did not matter. Florida showed Georgia what it means to be part of this rivalry.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly Napier is not on his way out. He's definitely, people say he's on the hot seat. I think after that South Carolina game, I think his seat is ice cold.
Yes.
Not to mention the tens of millions of dollars that are contained in that buyout. He's here to stay. What he's done to the culture. Before we get into these power rankings, real quick, 60 seconds. I want you to tell me about the culture fit that Billy Napier is for Florida football.
Man, I wish I didn't have 60 seconds. We talked about this a long time ago when we got him, but I'm going to try to put it in perspective in 45 seconds. He is what Florida needs. We look at Spurrier, we look at Meyer and offense and things like that, but I've told people in the past, with them came points and championships, but that really thick held tradition of Florida football wasn't there. And I feel like Billy Napier is the right fit because he is a culture coordinator. And what I mean by that is he wants to stay there and build a culture so thick that when players come in, it's like, the expectation. And we haven't had that. I don't care what nobody says. We've never had that. We didn't have it with Spurrier. We didn't have it with Meyer. They won a lot of games. They did a lot of cool stuff, and offense was our culture, but you can't have a culture like that. It can't be like we scored a lot of points, throw the ball around. That's not a culture. And I think Billy Napier is great for Florida because he wants to build a solidified culture for Florida football. So when kids come in, the fans, the expectation is certainly not just we score a lot of points. The expectation is winning a certain way, and that's what he's bringing.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. Let's get into these power rankings. So I'm gonna go through them, and for those watching on YouTube, you're actually gonna see the teams show up on the screen. But let's go through this. So this is a fun part. So we're gonna start at 28 because that's where we find Florida. Florida in this power. Now keep in mind, this is a predictive power ranking. This is not about who is more deserving of a certain ranking. This is purely what would be expected on a neutral field. So 1 would be expected to beat 2 and everybody else in the country on a neutral field. Florida at number 28 would be expected to lose by a smidgen to number 27 on a neutral field, but they'd be expected to beat every other team below them in the power ranking. So number 28 is Florida. Number 27 is Arkansas, who Florida will play at home. That's a key for that game.
Yes. Yes.
26 is Arizona. Now we're getting into the top 25, and you're going to see these on the screen. 25 is Utah. 24 is Missouri, who Florida has to play at Missouri. 23 is Tennessee. Again, on a neutral field, the power ranking would expect Tennessee to beat Florida. Ben Hill Griffin at night, a different story. Number 22 is Maryland. Number 21 is Miami. Number 20 is Clemson. 19 Oregon State. 18 North Carolina. 17 Duke. 16 Kansas State. Now we're getting into some of the big-time talented teams in the country, 15 Texas A&M. Their talent holds a heavy weight in this model, and that's why they're so high. 14 USC, who certainly had a fall from last week. Alabama surprisingly had a fall from last week as well. They're 13. Their advanced stats are not shining right now, and that's the reason for that. Ole Miss on a neutral field at this point in the season would be expected to barely beat Alabama. They're number 12. FSU is at 11. Number 10, big riser, rising 4 spots this week is Notre Dame. 9 is Texas. 8 is Penn State, who looks incredible, especially on defense. LSU, number 7, looks great on offense. Defense is suspect. 6 is Ohio State. Again, another team that is winning, but isn't showing up in the advanced stats, and therefore they've fallen just a little bit. 5 is Georgia. 4 is Washington. Great showing. And this is the controversial part. 3 is Oregon. Keep in mind, at Washington, Oregon lost by 3 points. So it makes perfect sense that on a neutral field, Oregon would be very slightly favored. Number 2 is Michigan, and number 1 is Oklahoma. The first time this season that they are number 1, and man, they have risen big time. So, Coach, real quick, do you have any outstanding observations from that power ranking?
Yeah, Oklahoma being number 1. And I know why. I know why. You have to add in a lot of factors. They beat Texas on the neutral field. That is big. I did not see that coming. They play in a conference that's favorable to the things they like to do, things like that. They have a good quarterback. The offense is very balanced, and the defense is much improved. So I can see why. But Michigan being number 2, I don't see it. I think Michigan should be number 1. And this is why. I've got a chance to watch a lot more Michigan games this year and listen. It's been a long time since a team that I've seen a team that is like humming on every cylinder, offense, defense, special teams. They don't beat themselves. They have the quarterback, they have the head coach. And those 2 things are always huge in any high level of football. They have a quarterback, they have a coach that can run the ball, and they play defense. And all of those things, I don't care on any field. Everything that Michigan has, most of these teams don't, and it travels everywhere. And that's why I would put Michigan 1, because everything Michigan has travels when other teams, and it's consistent. They've been doing this for the last couple of years now. You know, they've beaten Ohio State the last couple of years and things like that. They've been in the playoffs and things like that. They probably, were upset last year in the playoffs and things like that. But I think this team is on a mission. I think Harbaugh's on a mission, and they're not going to beat themselves. They are a very low penalized team. Like I say, they can run the ball. Play action, off the play action is big, and that defense is humming. Their special teams is really good too. That's like the biggest thing that kind of jumped out at me was Oklahoma definitely 2. I mean, yeah, Michigan for me would be 1.
Yeah. No, you make an excellent point. In fact, just this past week, Michigan was the number 1 team in our poll, and they look excellent. They look fantastic. So that's a great observation right there. Now, we an SEC country, so I would be very remiss not to bring out the SEC power rankings. So number 1, I'm actually going to start at number 1. We're going to work our way down. Number 1, of course, is the University of Georgia. Number 2 is LSU. 3, Ole Miss. 4, Alabama. 5, Texas A&M. 6, Tennessee. 7, Missouri. 8, just barely ahead of Florida, Arkansas. Number 9, Florida. Number 10, Auburn. Number 11, South Carolina. 12, Mississippi State. And this is incredibly controversial, but 13 is Kentucky. 14 is Vanderbilt. And let me just say this straight off the bat. For those of you that are yelling at the screen or yelling at the car speaker, the reason why Kentucky is 13 is because the model looks at that game that Florida had lost to Kentucky. Number one, it looks at that home environment for Kentucky as playing a big part. Kentucky had the lead and then they ran with it, caught Florida in a very bad position.
Yeah.
Florida, one explosive play doesn't go in Kentucky's favor. It's probably a very different game, right? You have that penalty, and then on the the penalty, the special teams penalty, running into the shield.
Yeah.
On the very next play, if I'm not mistaken,
over it.
Kentucky takes it to the house. If that play doesn't happen, that game is probably has a different outcome. Now, Kentucky might still have won the game, but it certainly may not be a blowout. Since that game, Kentucky's played abysmal. So that game, the model considers to be an outlier and not a pattern. Definitely. That's what's so important about power ranking teams, is recognizing when an occurrence is an outlier and not part of the pattern. So what Florida's demonstrated against South Carolina, and they continue to demonstrate, with the exception again of that Kentucky game for the most part, is Florida's been efficient on offense.
Yes.
And they've made stops on defense when they've had to. Again, with the exception of that Kentucky game, they made stops. And again, the Kentucky game would have been very different without giving up some of those explosive plays.
Definitely.
So that's the one thing. That's the one caveat that I want to kind of communicate. Sir, do you have any observations with that SEC power ranking? Anything that you would change?
I wouldn't change much, but I am glad that you explained to the listeners about Kentucky, because they're going to look at Kentucky and be, well, how can you rank Kentucky under Florida when Kentucky beat Florida? And I'm glad you explained that, because like you said, home environment, those explosive plays, they hadn't had those since. And I'm telling you right now, and I feel like this, I feel like Florida is Kentucky's biggest rival now. It's not. I do believe that. I believe, like, we gear up to play Georgia, we gear up to play Florida State. I believe that Kentucky gears up to play us too. And I believe that environment, the explosive plays, like you say, the penalty that really like cost us and things like that, a lot of that played into that. But like you say, I feel like if Florida played Kentucky again and they played in Jacksonville or they played in Atlanta, I feel like Florida wins by 2 touchdowns. I honestly believe that. So that I'm glad that you explained that to our listeners. Yes. The thing that I probably would change right now, I would almost change out Missouri and Alabama. I would. I would drop Alabama down to 5 and on 6, Tennessee to 7, and move Missouri up. And I say that is because Missouri is extremely explosive on offense. And they've always been good defensively. We don't want to say it, but since they've been in the SEC, they've always been pretty solid defensively. The whole thing was Missouri is usually really good when their defense is solid and their offense is humming. And guess what? Their offense is humming and their defense is solid. And I do believe that right now, Missouri is a tough team, man. I believe Missouri is a tough team. You got a quarterback that's really good. You got a receiver that's one of the top leading receivers in the country and things like that. So they do a lot of things well. They do play well on the road and at home and things like that. And they're an older team, a very mature team and things like that. So if I had to change anything, I probably would move Missouri up to where Alabama is and drop everybody else down.
Wow. That's a great observation. And Missouri looks excellent. And I think the main thing that is holding them back, and it's actually pretty ironic, they're doing a lot more with less.
Yes.
Their talent, there's certainly a talent disparity with Missouri. And so the model expects that in the long run to play a part in their inability to be more successful than they could be, based on the scheme that they have and how excellent their players are executing. So we have a brief amount of time. So we're gonna crash through rapid fire through Florida's remaining schedule.
Let's do it.
So this is the in all kinds of weather forecaster model, and it's spitting out a score for the remaining 5 games on Florida's schedule. Okay. So Georgia, Florida, it has Florida losing by a score of 40-27. And then the following week, Arkansas, Florida, at Florida. It has Florida winning by, I believe that's 6 points, 33-27. Okay. And then the following week, Florida at LSU has LSU winning 48-30.
Okay.
And the following week after that, you have Florida at Missouri, has Florida losing 37-28. And then finally, the big time matchup in the Swamp. And this is where I actually might disagree with the model. Florida State. It has Florida losing in a close one.
Wow.
Florida State with 32 points. Florida with 29 points.
Wow.
Again, incredibly close, coming down to the wire. That looks like a last-second touchdown by the Noles in the Swamp. And I believe if you map this out, I believe that has Florida only winning one more game, so being 6-6. But that Florida State game, essentially a toss-up.
Yeah.
So Florida beats Florida State, upsets Florida State in the Swamp. Definitely a possibility, not impossible.
No.
What do you think? Do you have any disagreement with what the model's spitting out?
I don't. I mean, I believe we will be Arkansas. Be a close game. I think we'll pull it out. LSU at night is a different monster. A young team going into LSU that environment. I just don't see it happening. Like I say, we have had trouble at Missouri. I mean, even when we won there the last couple of years, them years that we won there, it was always tough. And so I do believe that now the FSU game, God, I can see that going both ways. Yes, when you said a late touchdown, I can see somebody like one of those big receivers catching a one-on-one ball. I can see that. But I just believe that being in the Swamp, and we play so well in the Swamp and things like that, I believe Florida State is having to play for a lot. I don't believe that they're ready for, and I think it's going to be one of those years when Florida State's better than Florida, but Florida upsets FSU. I truly believe that. I think we're going to win. We can get to 7 wins and win a bowl game, 8 wins. I think that would be huge, man.
Be massive. So, Coach, the last thing we're going to do on this episode of the In All Kinds of Weather forecast is we are going to forecast this upcoming weekend of college football. I have, of course, pulled the games of the week. We are going to go in reverse order. So we're gonna start with the latest game, and we're gonna move all the way through to the big noon kickoff with, of course, Penn State at Ohio State. We'll do that one last. This is rapid fire. We have literally about 30 seconds per game, so we're gonna move quick. I'm going to say the matchup, and then I want to hear your score, or you can just pick the team and how many points you think they're going to win by, and I'll give you the score that the model is spitting out, and then we'll keep it going. So we're going to start off with Arizona State at Washington.
Oh, man, Washington. I think Washington wins by at least 28. I think the score probably going to be 42-21.
Yes, sir. The line is 28. The model is expecting Washington to win by about 39 points.
Oh, yeah.
So moving on to LSU playing out of the SEC this time around. They are playing Army at home. What do you think?
Ooh. LSU is going to win. I think LSU is going to win. You don't come into LSU and win a lot. I think that score will probably be probably by 24. I think that score is going to be 35. I say 35-14.
Yep. The model loves LSU, picking LSU by 32 points. Again, a rapid fire. We have Duke at Florida State. What say you?
Wow, Duke in an upset. I believe Duke in an upset. I think Duke wins by 3.
Man, I think you're right on it. The model, the betting line is close to 16 points for FSU. The model likes Florida State by 13. So against the spread, that would actually be Duke. Let's go to Michigan at Michigan State.
Michigan is a rivalry game. I think Michigan have a slight hiccup, but I think Michigan pulls it out. I think Michigan by at least 17 points.
Yes. The model likes Michigan by 26 points. It's picking them 40-14. Next up is South Carolina. Again, they just lost to Florida in a heartbreaker, and they're playing at Missouri.
Wow. I think it's going to be a good game. I think both offenses are pretty good, but it's at Missouri. I like Missouri to win that game. I like Missouri by, I like Missouri by 20.
Good score. So the model is picking Missouri to win by 12, 40-28. Next up, big time rivalry weekend for Tennessee at Alabama. Closer than the experts think. What do you say?
Glad you put me on the spot on that one. Man. Is it at Tennessee?
It's at Alabama.
Oh, wow. Barn burner. I'm gonna go and pick Alabama at home. I think Alabama by at least 7.
Excellent. The model is picking Bama by 11. All right, here we go. 4 games left. Rapid fire. 30 seconds a pop. Let's do it.
All right.
We got Washington State at Oregon. What say you? Give me your score.
High scoring game. Oregon wins coming off the loss. I think the score is 42-28.
Excellent. The model likes Oregon 46-21. We have a game, an epic game. Our Air Force at Navy. What say you?
Give me Air Force. Give me Air Force. No, I just, I don't know why. I just like Air Force better. Give me Air Force. I would say 28-24.
I like it. Air Force. Air Force is going to get a big win on the road. The model likes them by 12 points by a score of 32-20. Some crazy scores on this sheet. All right, before we get to the big time matchup, rapid fire, UCF, the Fighting Central Floridas, the Fighting Knights at Oklahoma, the #1 power ranked team. What say you?
Oklahoma by 1,000,000.
Oh, yeah.
Oklahoma by 1,000,000. I like Oklahoma by at least 28.
Yes, I happen to agree. The model happens to agree as well. It actually likes Oklahoma by 27, but I would not be surprised if it's more than that. Oklahoma is going to put pedal on the metal. All right, so the final pick, we're going to do Penn State at Ohio State, game of the week. Coach Drayton, here we go.
Penn State defense wins. Penn State's defense is extremely solid, extremely consistent, and I like Penn State to beat Ohio State, who's been struggling a little bit and has been squeaking out games. Give me Penn State for the win. Penn State by 7.
This is a family affair, and the model loves Ohio State by 9. Not so fast, Coach Drayton. Thanks for your time. Go Gators.
Yes, sir. Go Gators.
Give the fans a Gator chop.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.